Welcome to Mary Queen Stories, the official podcast of Mary Queen of the Holy Rosary Parish in Lexington, Kentucky. Our mission is to receive God's love, proclaim the greatness of the Lord, serve joyfully, and make missionary disciples of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, Jennifer Longworth, Communications and Parish Life Coordinator at Mary Queen. My guest today is our new parochial vicar, Father Michael Flanagan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Everyone wants to know who this new priest is, so I thought we'd have you on the show and tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from, how you got to Mary Queen, and your story of how you became a priest, because everyone has their own vocation story, so we would like to hear yours.
Certainly. Okay. Well, I'll just start off from the beginning. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, Columbia, Pennsylvania, Lancaster County, southeastern Pennsylvania, about an hour straight west of Philadelphia, and about 45 minutes south of the capital of Harrisburg. So born into a Catholic family. Well, our parents are Catholic. All my cousins and relatives, everyone was Catholic, and that was a good thing. Matter of fact, I didn't know non-Catholics till I was a teenager, although they were around. Raised in a Catholic family, we went to Mass all the time. We prayed all the time. And so it was a good upbringing in that sense.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
So I have 4 sisters. Kathy's the oldest, then me, and my brother Sean, and then Maureen, Eileen, Colleen.
So 2 to 4.
2 to 4, yes, 2 to 4. Yeah, they were hoping 3 to 3. It came out 2 to 4.
Okay.
I had a call really from an early age 8 actually. I was a altar boy back then, altar server, we'd say nowadays. And I did that for a number of years. I was always impressed by the truth and the goodness and beauty of the Catholic Mass. And that's one of the things that always drew me. And I felt I had a call back then, but I never acted on it for 40 years for a number of reasons. Fear, a number of different things internally, right? Shyness, etc. However, it kept getting stronger and stronger as life went on. And it was clear to me that I wasn't going to be married because I was not really looking for that. Eventually, I ended up working at a university after I graduated from college. There, I got a little more involved in the church with a tragic accident happened. My mom got killed in a car crash when I was 25. And that woke me up because I was kind of drifting a little from the faith at that point in the rebellious years, as we'd say. But then that drew me. See, one or two ways you can fall apart or you can get closer to God. And my family was supportive, aunts and uncles and so on. And I ended up getting closer to God, and I started getting into my faith and started reading the Bible for the first time ever and different things. The more I did, the more I came alive in the church, the more it was appealing to me. Even though I was working with computers for 24 years at a university, in IT, I was always going to Mass, and I got more and more involved in church. I started off as a sacristan, and then I became a lector, and then an extraordinary minister, and I was in the men's club, and I just kept going more and more. The more I got involved, the more I wanted to do. And all throughout my life, even since age 8, right, people were telling me, you'll make a good priest someday. You're called to be a priest. And I certainly felt that call, but I was like, I also heard you got to make sure it's not anyone influence you. It's got to come from God. And I was like, is this from God? And so I said, so no. But I started getting more involved in church. I got into the charismatic movement. Eventually, there was a men's club that got together in my diocese in Allentown. And I was impressed by that. The men were living the faith, and I was learning to live the faith better. We met for a couple of years, and after a couple of years, one of my friends at the church where I was at, she said, did you ever think about becoming a deacon before a priest? And I said, well, never, not really. But then I thought about it. I thought, well, maybe I'm not called to be a priest. Maybe I'm called to be a deacon. So I applied for that. And I was accepted. But before I was accepted, I told my men's group, there were about 18 of us in this group, and we were meeting every week, or every month rather, for a number of years. And I told him I was going to go into to be, applying to be a deacon. And 4 other men said the exact same thing.
Oh, wow.
And as it turned out, all 5 of us were accepted, and all 5 of us became deacons. And then there were 3 men in the next deacon class in Allentown that were in our group, and they became deacons. So 8 out of the group, and then our group disbanded. And we said that was God's call. For the purpose of that men's group was
to get deacons.
to get deacons, okay? But all as I'm going through and I'm working and everything's fine, I'm never married, never close to married, okay? Living on my own, working at the university, which I liked. I liked computers. I liked things like that, solving problems, etc. I enjoyed being a deacon, and people said I was good at it. They liked it. I liked it. But I kept getting the call. And even as I'm going through the training, okay, with my fellow classmates, every single one, including their wives, the only one, there's 2 of us that didn't have wives that were never married, but everyone else was married. And they all said, "What are you doing here? Why aren't you looking into the priesthood?"
Yeah.
Okay. I said, well, Anyway, so I was ordained a deacon in 2000.
And that's a 5-year process, right?
It is now, yeah. It was 4.5 for us. Now it's 5. Some places it's 6. Depends where you go nationally, but usually the standard's 5. Okay, so I went through 5 years of that. 1995, 2000, I'm ordained as a deacon, and it was going well. However, one of the fruits also was I made a Cursillo 2 years later in 2002, and after one of my fellow deacons working on me for about 6 years, I finally make it. And one of the fruits of that is I started going to Mass every day. I got more convicted. I was like, I got to be going every day and praising the Lord, and so I started doing that. And at the same time, this call to the priesthood was always there, and people were still saying, why aren't you going to become a priest? And I said, well, I'm a deacon here. I'm happy. However, the call kept getting stronger and stronger. I was like, I got to answer this one way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I said, well, let me try different things. So I thought, well, I'm in the Diocese of Allentown. Maybe I can be a priest for the Allentown Diocese. And they arranged, we had an interview, and I thought it went well, but they said no. Mm. And I think part of it was also because I just came off a Cursillo weekend. I was dead tired going into the interview. That was not a good strategy on my part, but it was wonderful.
Let me stop you real quick. So what is the typical process to become a priest then? You just hope somebody takes you, or what do you
Well, you have to apply for it, number one, but also you have to go through all kind of interviews, psychological tests, written tests. Other people, they check other people to see if, what their opinion is, right? They'll check around and ask different people. So it's a whole process. So, God's the one that calls you, and so they got to make sure this God is calling you to or be a priest with us. Okay. And so basically they said no. Okay. And yet I'm talking to my pastor at St. Mary's in Kutztown there, very holy man, priest for all those years, and he's saying, keep going. I'm talking to my spiritual advisor, spiritual director, and he says, keep going. I talk to my family, they say, you're not going to let that stop you. You keep going. You're called to be a priest, right? And it kept getting stronger and stronger. So I said, okay, I'm going to try different things. So then I tried my native diocese of Harrisburg. Okay. And the interview went better. But at the end of the weekend, they said no. Okay. So I kind of felt rejected, twice. But I'm like, well, maybe I'm not called to be that. But I was going to try Allentown, Philadelphia rather, which is the big archdiocese there, and Allentown and Harrisburg used to be part of that way back historically. Anyway, but my pastor said, don't even try them because the other bishops know you'll get the same result because they won't want to go against the other bishops, what they said. So I said, okay. So then I thought of, well, there's religious orders too. There's diocesan priests, religious order priests. And I said, well, let me try some different things here. So I tried the Franciscans because I liked St. Francis of Assisi. I said, boy, that would be good. So I called up the order up in Father Benedict Rochelle was one of the Capuchins up in New York City in the Bronx. So I thought, well, maybe I like their group. So I gave them a call, and they said, no, we have too many priests. We can't take any in. We'd love to have you. We can't take you.
Well, that's a good problem. But
it was a good problem. So the answer was no there. But prior to that, actually, I had two other ones. I tried a Dominican one because there's a Dominican priest in the area, and I do like St. Thomas. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm called to be a Dominican priest. The first thing they say, how old are you? Second on the phone. Second thing was I said I'm 42 at the time, or 43, whatever it was at that point. And they said, we're sorry. We only accept men 35 and under. So I tried another place. I even tried the Palatines, who I never knew anything about. They're order out of Italy, okay? But they were in Philadelphia, right near where I was. And the conversation went like this. How old are you? 42 or 43, whatever. We're sorry, but we only take men 35 and under. I tried two different other orders, exact same interview, okay, on the phone. Didn't even get to interview them, okay? They all said 35 and under. Then I realized part of the issue was the time I was looking into the priesthood, because the year was 2002, which is the year the scandal broke out in the U.S. And so people were saying that's why they're not taking you for 35 and under, because they were, okay, so plus I was a deacon at that point. And so as a deacon, of course, you're called to be, if you're a permanent deacon, it should be for the rest of your life. You made a commitment. But that can be changed. You can go on to the priesthood, but it's more difficult. And so that was part of the issue. I think that's why Allentown didn't accept me, because I would have been the first ever deacon to become a priest, permanent deacon to become a priest in the diocese. So that was one of the things. After a while, I thought of the order I like most. It's the Carmelite order. It's beautiful spirituality, interior prayer. I like all that. Maybe I'm called to that. And I filled out paperwork and called them up, and they said, we'd be glad to interview you. And they took me, we met. It was for the province, big area, and the headquarters is in Washington, D.C. So I went down there for a weekend. They invited me down, met the vocations director. We had private masses in the National Shrine there, right? Immaculate Conception, beautiful place. I thought the weekend went well. There's priests there that said, we can't wait to have you, like Father Kieran Kavanagh, who translated all the works of St. John the Cross and St. Teresa of Avila from Spanish to English, it's classic editions. He said, wow, can't wait to have you. Father John Sullivan was the English-speaking, head of formation for the whole world for the Carmelites in Rome for a number of years. And he says, can't wait to have you.
And you're thinking this is a very optimistic.
And things seem to be going well. And I was like, okay. Well, comes to Sunday. And I will say the result was like a true Carmelite insight. I think the only thing I have in common with Pope John Paul II, I'm not comparing myself to him in any way, was that I got a similar result. So they said to me, you are definitely called to be a priest. I said, well, that was good news. But the next line was, but not with us. And that same thing happened as John Paul II. He wrote his doctorate on St. John the Cross, okay? And he wanted to be a Carmelite priest, but they said, you have greater things in store, and you're called to be more in the world. And as it, obviously that came true. Well, anyway, so they said, you're called to something else. I even tried the Trappist side, like the strict order there.
Wow.
And they allowed me to stay for like a week trial, okay? And I did everything they did, silent prayer and everything. But after a week, and it went well, I thought, that's good. And I said, but I'd like to consider joining you, but I want to make sure, would you guarantee that I'd be a priest? Well, they can't make that guarantee.
Oh.
They said, that's got to be discerned by the community. So plus someone else said to me, you need, even though I was pretty shy, even though I'm still a people person, I like to be out with people. And they said, you need to be more in the world. I don't think a strict order like that would be good for you. And I thought about it. I said, and I opted out of that. That's the only one I said no. Okay. And so I tried that before the Carmelites. And after the Carmelites said no, and this is a period of like 4 years or so.
Okay.
2002 to say 2006, roughly. Okay. So the beginning of that. And I almost gave up. I was like, well, maybe I'm called to be a deacon, but even though this call is coming in, maybe I'm discerning God's will wrong, right? And then someone says to me, oh, don't give up yet. Well, before I take the next step, I go with my friends. I was in the charismatic movement, and there was a nice prayer and praise, a full day of prayer and praise and mass and different events at Rosemont College in Philadelphia. Never there before. Go with my two friends. I'm just in regular work clothes from like university work clothes, right? So no one knows me. I only know the two people I'm coming in with. I don't know anyone else. And as soon as I come in the door, this lady slowly walks straight to me and stops about an inch from my nose.
Oh my goodness.
I was nervous.
Personal space.
Yeah, that's personal space. No one. Yeah, but he had a number of things, right? And I like, what in the world? That's what I'm thinking, right? And she says, doesn't even say hi. Here's the conversation. Very calmly, she says this. At this time next year, you will be in the seminary. Turned around and she walked away. Walked back to the other end of the area there. And I don't even remember the rest of the day. I know there was mass involved. I know there was singing and praise. I just don't remember it. I was in a blur. I was like, wow, what happened here? But she was absolutely right, as it turns out, in retrospect, okay? So we call that a gift of foreknowledge or prophecy, okay? And she had that for sure, that gift. Anyway, so shortly after that, I said, maybe she's right. I need to pursue this. But I was like, I have no more options. And a friend of mine says, do you ever try Kentucky with Bishop Gaynor? Because he knows you. He might accept you. And I never thought of that. I was like, I didn't know anything of Kentucky other than 2003, a group of us came from a Cursiesta group. 42 of us on a bus came to his ordination in 2003 as bishop, okay? Because he was in the Allentown Diocese where I was. And he actually taught me part of canon law because he was a canon lawyer, among other things. So I knew him from that. I also made a Cursillo. When I made the Cursillo in 2002, he was a spiritual advisor on the weekend. He was excellent. And so we went to his ordination. That first experience of Kentucky was that ice storm that during the, if you remember that, okay?
Yeah.
So afterwards, I said to myself, I got to talk to him, and see what. So, like a little after his ordination, he came back. He was going back every now and then. I heard to speak to the permanent deacons because like I said, he was involved in that for our diocese in Allentown where I was. And he came back and I said, I'm going to go to that, number one, but number two, I'm going to talk to him personally at the end, which I never did prior to along the way. I never tried to talk to someone higher up. And he was willing to listen to me. He says, I know you, and I believe you have a persistent call to the priesthood. And I'd be willing to accept you, willing to look at you, consider you for the diocese, okay? And so normally I would have jumped right on that. But what I did this time was follow someone else's advice. They said, if it's really God calling you to be a priest, you're a deacon and you're doing well and so on, why don't you pray for it, about it for a year? And so that's what I did. Every day I went to the Adoration Chapel for close to an hour for a year. And the call just kept getting stronger. There was no, don't do it. There was, do it. And after a while, it was like almost shouting at me.
Yeah.
I was like, I got to follow through. And so I followed through, and I was accepted. I went through all the tests, everything, all the doors are open. I eventually, Bishop Gaynor sends me, which I think was great in my situation, to Sacred Heart School of Theology up in Wisconsin, outside of Milwaukee. Great experience there. Just 3 years in the seminary because I was already a deacon. But what's interesting, at the time I was a deacon there were 13 other deacons my 3 years that were going on to the priesthood, permanent deacons, right, at Sacred Heart. All 13 got ordained, all 13 of us. But I thought I'd be the elder deacon at some point in terms of number of years as a deacon, because I was 7 years going into it as a permanent deacon. But everyone I met, all 13, the 12 other deacons were longer than that. They were there 10 years, 20 years.
Wow.
Okay. All of them got ordained. One of them was Father Richard Watson, who was also a priest for our diocese. He was 11 years. I was 10 years at that point when he came in, or something like that. As I was getting ordained, I was like, this is where I'm called to be. And one of the things I do tell some people is, so I started off, I was assigned to Christ the King, the cathedral, for a year. It turns out to be a year. It was supposed to be a couple years. But one of the first things that happened within the first month, I was called to make a sick call to a hospital and someone to anoint someone. And this lady was an internationally known teacher of doctors at UK. She had stage 4 brain cancer, and her husband was also an international teacher at UK of doctors, and he was distraught, as you can imagine. And but I boldly said, I'm a priest for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or something, and I said, I'm going to minister the sacrament. Who knows? Jesus Christ may heal you. I said that. I let him know. I said, Jesus Christ may heal her of this completely. And so I anoint her, and he was relieved. I was relieved, but she was unresponsive. She couldn't respond at all, right? We didn't see anything different. I didn't notice anything different, right? And so but he was relieved because, we were praying, and he saw some good effect there. He was more at peace. So I gave him my number and said, if anything further comes up, or, just give me a call. And then I forgot about it. And about a month later or so, something like that, about a month later, she walks up to me. I didn't even recognize her, okay? And she says, I want to thank you for healing me. I was like, I didn't even know who she was at that point, right? And I said, how'd that happen? And he said, don't you remember in the hospital you anointed me? I said, yeah. Oh, yeah. I had 4-stage. Oh, yeah. Okay. He says, well, it's completely 100% gone right after you gave me the anointing of the sick. And I said to me, that was a confirmation that God was using me. I was called to be a priest at that time for that situation. At least for that situation, right? To me, it was a confirmation of, hey, I'm doing what God wants me to do. So I was there for 1 year, and very busy at the cathedral, just I am here.
It's a busy place.
It's a busy place, but it was good. But I was looking forward to being there for at least a couple of years. Priests you're normally assigned for a couple of years. But after 1 year, Bishop Gaynor says, I'd like you to be a pastor, Berea, Mount Vernon, and the Key right away. And so I was, and so yes. So I was there. I had to learn how to be a pastor. I made mistakes, but it was good leading people in prayer. Said prayer with the students at Berea College. I learned to say some Spanish masses for the people at Berea. It was a lot of good things there, and I wanted to stay there. But normal terms in our diocese are for pastors 6 years. It can be renewed, okay? But normally it's 6 years. at that point, Bishop John Stowe was our bishop, and he said, and I gave all these reasons. I thought these were great. Why I have to stay, right? And he's like, I'll give you the short story. He says, "That's very nice, Father Michael. You are now at Grace and West Liberty." Because he wanted to move me on. 6 years are up, okay? Another priest can do what I thought I was there, and that's true. And he did a great job after me. So anyway, I was there. So now I'm in Eastern Kentucky, and still in the mountains. I was a dean for 6 years when I was 5 years when I was in Berea, Mount Vernon, the Key. Well, I became dean after 1 year as alternate dean to begin with at Grace and West Liberty for Big Sandy in the East. And after 1 year, I become the dean. So dean,
what is a dean for those listening who aren't sure?
A dean is someone that's representing the bishop in charge of an area, a region, right? So we have 6 deaneries in our diocese. The bishop determines that, and they're kind of to coordinate that and to all the priests from that area meet together once a month, and someone leads that, and that's the dean. And the dean can do other things, like if the bishop needs to confirm someone he can't get to the area, he can delegate that to a dean.
Okay.
Which he did a couple times. So that kind of thing. So you're leading that, and once you're a dean, you're also part of a couple other committees in the diocese with priests. So it makes you a little busier.
Yeah.
And you meet with all the other deans and the bishop and some other people. So it's a number of things involved. And so I was doing that, and I was happy where I was there again. And but after 4 years, I was hoping to be there, a lot longer. Bishop John says, "I need you in Paintsville because Father Hop's retiring, and we need someone in there, and I want you there." So I said yes, and so I was there for 3 years. So I was at the parish. We had a school Our Lady of the Mountains, and also a thrift store, and a tremendous outreach. For being a small parish, we had a tremendous outreach to the poor. It was a different experience for me in the sense that I had no staff other than a part-time, she was really good, a part-time bookkeeper. Other than that, I did everything.
It's just you.
No secretary, I did have a deacon, but he kind of was there for the masses and did a couple things he did some things in the background, but didn't work daily or anything like that as in the office or anything. So I answered all the calls. I answered all the door every time the door rang, which was quite often, and I had to do all the finances. I took the collection up. I put it in the bank. I put it on the computer. I wrote all our computer programs. I did everything computerized so it'd be easier. And so I did all that myself. That part I enjoyed, but it was a lot of work, and it was fine. But then the opportunity came up to move on, and I said, talking to the bishop, when I retire, I want to be in Lexington or near Lexington, number one, personally. But number two, also wouldn't have to travel as far. My vision's not great, and long distance, 2 hours one way at night is tough driving.
Yeah.
And so I was doing a lot of that for a lot of years in the mountains. This opportunity came up, and now I'm at Mary Queen. I'm very happy to be here, very excited. The Lord has used me in a number of ways. I told you that healing. I have a group that we do a healing ministry. We've prayed over, I don't know, maybe 50, 60, 70 people have been healed. That, of course, the Lord does all the healing. Jesus does all the healing, right. But he uses us humans. And so we've been part of that for a number of miracles. So I see that. I love to help out wherever I'm needed. And I'm just so glad to be here as I continue my call as a priest.
Well, we're glad you're here with us here. You have so many different gifts and a diverse background of life experiences that you're bringing to us, and it'll be good. Okay. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Like I said, there could be a couple different ministries. I'll have to see what's all available here, and I'll have to learn when to say, when people tell me, no, that's already being done. Yeah. So I learned for sure that I don't have to count the collection or go to the bank. We got that covered. So I'm good. So
what I like here is I'm focusing more on the priestly ministry duties that we normally have versus all the administrative work.
Right.
Which is, for me personally, is what I'm called to do, and I think I'll do better at.
The Mary Queen mission statement is receive God's love, proclaim the greatness of the Lord, serve joyfully, and make missionary disciples of Jesus Christ. And you'll be hearing that a lot as you get to know Mary Queen a little bit. But of those 4 basic ideas, which one resonates with you the most?
Well, they're all great ideas, but the one that resonates the most with me is proclaiming the greatness of the Lord, right? We're called to do that as priests. We're called to do it as Catholics, right? But certainly I'm feeling more and more, I see more and more as the older I get, the more experience I have, how great God is and how we need to proclaim that. Plus, I'm also, it goes in line with my love for our Blessed Mother. I'm the spiritual advisor for Magnificat, a women's group in our diocese. It's all over the world, actually, but in our diocese, I'm the spiritual advisor. Our mission statement is to magnify the greatness of the Lord, like Mary said, her Magnificat, right? So that resonates with me because we're called to evangelize. Every Catholic is called to proclaim the good news. And so that's what, as a priest, I can do it in a special way, that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And I think that's part of what I can do here.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. We look forward to seeing you around Mary Queen.
Okay, great. Thank you. I look forward to it too. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Mary Queen Stories. To connect with us, visit mqhr.org/podcast. Until next time, and always, Mary Queen of the Holy Rosary, pray for us.